The morning sun bathed Jetavana Grove with golden light, casting a serene glow upon the gathered disciples. Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, his presence calm and commanding. As he prepared to speak, his eyes, deep with wisdom, scanned the crowd, resting momentarily on each face. Bhikkhus, Buddha began, his voice clear, carrying across the grove like a steady stream. Today, I shall speak of suffering and its origin. His gaze settled on a young monk, recently joined, looking troubled. Tell me, Bhikkhu, Buddha said, addressing the monk directly, what burdens your heart? Speak without fear or hesitation. The young monk, trembling slightly, rose to his feet, bowing respectfully before the enlightened one. Lord, he began, his voice tinged with sorrow, I cannot find peace. My mind clings to what I have lost. Buddha nodded, his expression kind yet resolute, as though seeing through the monk's inner turmoil. Loss is a shadow that lingers over every life, yet it arises from our attachment, Buddha replied. Consider this tale. My disciples, he continued, shifting his gaze to include the entire assembly. Once, a merchant, wealthy and revered, owned a magnificent jewel, unmatched in beauty or value. The disciples leaned forward, their interest piqued by Buddha's unfolding story. One day, the jewel was stolen, and the merchant was plunged into grief. Consumed by despair and anger, the young monk nodded slowly, the story striking a chord within his grieving heart. The merchant sought answers from seers, asking why he must suffer such a loss. Buddha explained patiently. Each seer spoke of his attachment, saying, it is not the loss of the jewel that causes your pain. Why, then, do we suffer, Lord? Asked an elder monk, his voice carrying the weight of years and reflection. We suffer, Buddha said, because we cling, because we hold to that which is impermanent and seek to make it eternal. A faint breeze rustled the leaves above, punctuating Buddha's words like the soft turning of a page. Impermanence is the nature of all things, he continued. Even this life is but a fleeting moment in the cosmos. The young monk bowed his head, tears forming in his eyes, as understanding began to dawn upon him. But Lord, how do we let go of attachments when they feel inseparable from our very being? He asked. Buddha's gaze softened, his compassion evident, as he addressed the earnest question of his disciple. Begin by understanding, Buddha said. Contemplate the true nature of that to which you cling. Does it bring lasting joy or merely fleeting pleasure, leaving a deeper longing in its wake? Buddha asked gently. Reflect upon this truth with clarity and without judgment, he instructed, his voice steady yet tender. Guiding the disciple, the young monk nodded, his mind grappling with the profound lesson Buddha imparted with every word spoken. When the merchant realized his pain arose not from the jewel, but from his desire, his sorrow eased. Buddha concluded the story with a faint smile, observing the ripples of thought his words stirred. Clinging to the impermanent is like holding tightly to a flame. Wondering why your hand burns, Buddha said. Release the flame, Buddha continued, and you shall find freedom, for the flame is no longer yours to hold. The disciples murmured amongst themselves, each processing the deep yet simple truth of Buddha's teaching. Bhikkhus, Buddha called, reclaiming their attention with the sheer presence of his voice. Suffering is universal, but understanding is within reach. All who suffer are connected by the shared experience of impermanence, Buddha said, gesturing to the vast grove around them. The wind whispered through the leaves as though echoing the profound wisdom that filled the grove. The path to peace begins not with eradicating loss but with embracing its inevitability, Buddha instructed. See suffering as a teacher, not an enemy, Buddha said, his eyes alight with the fire of truth and compassion. Use suffering to deepen your understanding of life, as one uses a storm to learn the force of wind. The young monk looked up, his tears drying, replaced by a glimmer of resolve shining in his eyes. "Thank you, Lord Buddha," he said, his voice steadier now, gratitude flowing from his heart. Buddha inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the monk's gratitude with a gesture as profound as his words. "Transform your pain into your teacher," Buddha said, directing his wisdom now to the entire assembly gathered. "Like the lotus that rises from the mud, so too can understanding rise from suffering," he said. "Remember, my disciples, each of you has the seed of awakening within," Buddha reminded with calm confidence. "Water that seed with mindfulness and understanding, and it will bloom into wisdom and peace," Buddha said. The disciples sat in reflective silence, absorbing the wisdom Buddha offered with the clarity of flowing water. Under the canopy of the grove, a transformation began, not seen but deeply felt by the assembly. "Bhikkhus," Buddha said, his voice marking the closing of the teaching, "carry these truths in your heart always. Remember Sujata, who found wisdom by seeing that suffering is universal." Buddha concluded his lesson thoughtfully. His disciples dispersed to reflect on his words, each carrying a renewed sense of purpose. The young monk sat alone under a tree, the weight of his loss easing as understanding took root. In the quiet of Jetavana, Buddha rose, his serene steps marking the end of another timeless teaching. The sun rose higher, casting light over the grove and its disciples, each transformed in their way. Another day, the disciples gathered under the Bodhi tree, the morning breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers. Buddha, serene and radiant, sat among them, his gaze fixed upon the horizon. The sun's warm light fell gently on his robes, illuminating the wisdom etched upon his features. "Today, bhikkhus," Buddha began, his voice soothing yet profound, "I shall speak of compassion and its transformative power." A young disciple, nervous yet eager, raised his hand and spoke. "Lord, how does one truly practice compassion in daily life?" Buddha's eyes softened as he turned to the disciple, his gaze filled with gentle understanding. "Let me tell you a story," Buddha said, his tone drawing the disciples closer in rapt attention. "Once, a wandering monk came upon a man weeping beside a dried riverbed. The man had lost all hope. His crops failed, and his family went hungry," Buddha explained with calm deliberation. The monk approached him, not with judgment, but with the warmth of a heart willing to listen. The disciples nodded slowly, picturing the scene painted by Buddha's words, their hearts moved by the unfolding tale. He sat beside the man, asking nothing, offering no solutions, merely bearing witness to the weight of his sorrow. The man, surprised by the monk's silent presence, began to speak, sharing the depth of his despair. Buddha continued. The monk did not interrupt, did not offer hollow reassurances, but listened deeply, allowing the man's pain to flow. Over time, the man's heart lightened as his sorrow found expression, and he felt understood for the first time. Compassion begins not in the act of fixing, but in the simple act of presence, Buddha said firmly. The young disciple nodded, his eyes filled with newfound clarity as Buddha's words sank into his heart. "To truly counsel another, my disciples, you must first empty yourself of judgment and fill yourself with understanding," Buddha added. "Bhikkhus, remember the farmer Ananda once helped, sitting beside him in his grief without offering solutions immediately," Buddha said. When Ananda later asked if his actions were right, I told him, "Yes, for compassion listens before it speaks. Words alone cannot mend a broken spirit. The warmth of your heart, my disciples, carries the true power to heal." The monk who sat beside the man did not solve his problems but offered him strength by sharing his burden, Buddha explained. The disciples murmured softly, discussing the profound simplicity of Buddha's teachings as the grove echoed with wisdom. "Bhikkhus," Buddha called, drawing their attention back, Compassion is the force that binds us all, the bridge across suffering. The gentle rustling of leaves punctuated Buddha's words, carrying them further into the hearts of his devoted disciples. To practice compassion, you must first see beyond yourself. Recognizing the common thread of humanity in all beings, Buddha advised, let go of the desire to fix others. Instead, be the presence that brings peace to a troubled soul, Buddha said. The young disciple raised his hand again, asking, Lord, what if our compassion is met with rejection or anger? Buddha smiled gently, his expression radiating the infinite patience of understanding. Compassion, bhikkhu, is not measured by its reception but by the sincerity with which it is offered, Buddha replied. Let me share another story, Buddha continued, his voice drawing the disciples deeper into his wisdom. Once, a woman approached a monk with anger, accusing him of neglecting the village's suffering. Buddha said thoughtfully. The monk stood silently, absorbing her harsh words, his expression calm and unwavering, as though rooted deeply in compassion. When she paused, breathless, he said, I see your pain, and it saddens me. Tell me how I may help you. Her anger dissolved as tears replaced her fury, and she began to share the burden of her sorrow, Buddha explained. Compassion does not always dissolve anger immediately. It may take time for the heart to soften, Buddha added. Remember, my disciples, even rejection is an opportunity for compassion, for it reveals the depth of another's suffering, Buddha said. The young disciple bowed respectfully, his understanding growing deeper as Buddha's words illuminated his path forward. Bhikkhus, when offering counsel, do not fear rejection or anger. See them as cries for the compassion they lack, Buddha taught. To be compassionate is to embrace imperfection in oneself and others, knowing that all are flawed yet worthy of kindness. As a lotus rises from the muddy waters, so too can love arise from a heart burdened by pain, Buddha said. Be that steady presence, my disciples, that listens without judgment and speaks with the voice of kindness, Buddha urged. Compassion is the act of extending yourself into the world, weaving harmony through the threads of understanding, Buddha explained. The sun rose higher, casting its golden light upon the grove, bathing Buddha and his disciples in its warmth. Your words, your actions, your very presence can be the salve that eases suffering in another's heart, Buddha said. The disciples sat in quiet reflection, absorbing the transformative power of compassion and carrying it into their spirits. Bhikkhus, Buddha continued, his voice steady yet gentle. Compassion is the foundation upon which all meaningful counsel is built. Do not seek results or praise. Seek only to be the light that guides another from darkness, Buddha said. The disciples bowed as one, their hearts filled with gratitude for the profound truths Buddha had shared. Another day, Buddha sat quietly, watching the disciples go forth into the world to practice the teachings imparted. Under the shade of the Bodhi tree, Buddha closed his eyes, the stillness of the grove enveloping him like a calm river. Compassion flowed like a timeless current, carried in the hearts of his disciples, touching lives far beyond the grove. Another day, the disciples assembled under the canopy of the Bodhi tree, eager to hear Buddha's profound wisdom once more. Buddha sat in quiet contemplation, his presence calm and luminous amidst the serene stillness of the grove. The sun's rays filtered through the leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow upon the forest floor. Bhikkhus, Buddha began, his voice steady yet gentle. Today we shall speak of the path to liberation through mindfulness. A middle-aged monk, his brow furrowed with concern, spoke hesitantly, Lord, my mind is troubled with distractions that cloud my peace. Buddha's gaze rested upon him with understanding, his eyes radiating the compassion that flowed from his awakened spirit. The mind is like a restless monkey, leaping from thought to thought, but it can be tamed, Buddha replied. Let me tell you a story, Buddha said, drawing the assembly into the web of timeless wisdom he wove. Once, under the Bodhi tree, Mara the tempter sought to disturb my meditation with illusions of fear and desire. The disciples leaned closer, captivated by the mention of Mara and the trials Buddha endured during his quest for enlightenment. Mara whispered doubts and insecurities, conjuring visions of worldly pleasures and shadows of terror. Buddha explained patiently. I remained still, observing my thoughts and emotions, neither grasping nor rejecting them, until they passed like clouds through the sky. Buddha said, mindfulness is the practice of watching the mind without attachment, allowing its storms to subside naturally. Buddha instructed. The disciples nodded slowly, the clarity of Buddha's lesson illuminating their own inner struggles and desires. Bhikkhus, when counseling others, guide them to observe their suffering with mindfulness instead of fleeing or resisting it. Buddha advised, teach them not to suppress their fears or anger, but to watch them pass, as one watches ripples upon water. Buddha said. A young monk, curious yet hesitant, raised his hand and asked, Lord, how can we teach mindfulness to those unaccustomed to its practice? Buddha's gaze softened as he turned to the monk, his expression filled with patient understanding and wisdom. Begin with simple actions, Buddha replied. Encourage them to focus their attention upon the breath, anchoring their minds to the present. The breath is a constant companion, an ever-present rhythm that carries life and connects body to spirit, Buddha explained. Guide them gently to watch their thoughts as though watching a river, observing without diving into its currents. Buddha continued. The Eightfold Path offers further guidance for liberation, illuminating the steps to awaken the mind and heart. Buddha said. Each step, right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, is a tool for navigating suffering, Buddha explained. The disciples murmured amongst themselves, their minds turning over the truths Buddha imparted with steady grace. Bhikkhus, Buddha called, reclaiming their attention with the resonance of his voice. To counsel is to guide others upon their own path. Do not attempt to walk their path for them. Show them the signposts that lead to freedom, Buddha said. A soft breeze rustled the leaves above, carrying Buddha's words like whispers across the vast grove. Consider the story of the widow who sought my counsel. Her heart heavy with grief and despair, Buddha began. Her suffering seemed insurmountable, yet she found solace in observing her pain without judgment. As I taught her, through mindfulness, she transformed her grief into acceptance, her despair into understanding, her sorrow into wisdom, Buddha explained. Bhikkhus, mindfulness is the light that reveals suffering's true nature and eases its grasp upon the spirit. Buddha said firmly, teach others to practice this light, for through it, they will find the liberation that eludes them, Buddha instructed. The disciples bowed their heads respectfully, their hearts and minds absorbing the profound truths Buddha shared. A young disciple spoke, his voice tinged with awe. Lord, the Eightfold Path seems vast and complex. How do we simplify its teachings? Buddha smiled gently, his expression radiating the infinite patience of one who understands the depths of human limitation. The Eightfold Path is not a race or a mountain to climb, Bhikkhu, but a journey of steps taken mindfully, Buddha replied. Teach others to begin with right view and right intention, for these lay the foundation upon which the path is built, Buddha said. Right view is seeing the world as it truly is, free from illusion and distortion, Buddha explained. Right intention is aligning one's heart with compassion, kindness, and resolve to do no harm, Buddha added. The sun climbed higher into the sky, its rays casting light upon the grove and its meditative inhabitants. Each step taken upon the path brings the seeker closer to liberation, closer to the freedom of the awakened mind, Buddha said. Bhikkhus, When counseling, remind others that the journey to liberation begins with a single mindful step, Buddha advised. Guide them to focus on each step of the path, without worrying about its end or its complexity. Buddha continued. The widow I counseled began simply, practicing mindfulness in her daily tasks, transforming them into meditative acts, Buddha explained. Her journey to freedom began with the simple act of watching her breath and observing her thoughts. Buddha said, compassion, mindfulness, and the Eightfold Path are intertwined threads that form the fabric of liberation, Buddha explained. When counseling others, show them how these threads connect, how they can be woven into their lives, Buddha advised. Be the light that illuminates the darkness, guiding others to see their suffering as the doorway to wisdom, Buddha urged. The grove fell into quiet stillness, the disciples reflecting upon the profound teachings imparted by Buddha with infinite patience. Bhikkhus, Buddha continued, his voice steady yet gentle, remember that liberation is not given, but discovered by each soul who seeks it. Teach others to see their suffering not as punishment, but as the opportunity for transformation it presents, Buddha said. Another day, Buddha sat in quiet meditation, watching his disciples carry his teachings into the world beyond the grove. Under the shade of the Bodhi tree, Buddha closed his eyes, the stillness of the grove enveloping him like a calm river. Liberation began within each heart touched by his wisdom, like seeds scattered upon fertile soil awaiting the bloom. The Buddha's teachings felt timeless, a guide through existence. Master, I asked, how does one truly harmonize awareness? Acceptance feels elusive amidst life's challenges and doubts. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.